Hello, dear. It's Heather, and you're watching Save Today with Heather J. I am somebody who has spent her entire adult life living paycheck to paycheck and being one life event away from financial crisis. In order to move past that, I have created this channel, this budgeting channel, to help me create a budget, help me stick to a budget. By sharing that with you, I am a little bit more accountable to myself. Today's video is going to be my debts and desires video from July. I realize we have just stepped into August. I am behind schedule and I will be working hard to get myself caught up and ahead. And so let's just get right into today's video. I'm going to bring you back briefly to my June debts and desires video, and we're going to talk about my U-Haul boxes. Remember, I've been fighting this entire time, this entire video journey, which has just been May, June, and now July. We've had conversations about my U-Haul boxes. I have finally been able to get those taken care of, but it has come at quite the cost, both financial as well as emotional stress. And we're going to kind of really do some deep diving into some of that today. As you may recall, I originally had been quoted. I'm going to back up a second. For those of you who haven't been on this journey, let me explain from the beginning and then we'll get to where we're at now. I am somebody who has a tendency to move a lot. And this time when I moved, I knew I had several options of where I may be headed in my life. It wasn't one very focused direction. And so I wasn't sure where I was going to go, so I wasn't sure where my possessions were going to go. So this time I opted to load them into U-Haul's U-Boxes. It's U-Haul's version of pods. So they drop those off at my house, I fill them at my leisure, and then they pick them back up again, and then they sit in storage until I get where I want to go and I ask them to bring them to me. When I initially was looking at that estimate and exploring that option, the shipping from where I was to this location was going to be about $1,600. $1,661 is what that was looking like. Which was at that time about the same amount it would have cost me to get a single U-Haul rented for the amount of time it would take for me to get from the location I was to the location I'm in. So that's fine, same cost. I will just let them be in storage and that buys me some time. So by the time I was ready to receive them about 3 months later, the price had increased by $1,000. I did not have that amount of money, so I waited and I tried to save and I tried to save and I tried to save, and it didn't happen. So I began this journey with that as my number one kind of debt priority. I needed to get my stuff from U-Haul. I had 2 years worth of taxes to file with tax returns, two years of federal tax returns, and in those 2 years, 3 separate state returns. So I had a lot of taxes to file, and I was expecting a fair amount of money. One of my federal taxes, I did not get the extra bonus that I thought was going to be getting. So I had to save up some taxes and save up some of my money. And I finally was ready to get my U-Haul stuff. This has been quite the drama. And I will try and touch on some highlights without getting too involved in the details. When I was looking mid-June to have all 3 of my U-Haul boxes shipped to me, the price had dropped to $1,771 or $1,774. Basically, it had dropped by nearly $1,000. But at that time, I only had tax returns from 2 of my taxes, and I did not have the money to commit to that yet. By the time I did have all of my taxes in hand and was now ready to commit, the price had gone back up again. So I had to find ways to get my money. I think another important thing is that when I was getting ready to leave and needed my 3 boxes, I knew one of those boxes for certain was coming to the location where I currently am. The other 2 boxes, there was the potential for 3 separate things. I'm being very vague here just because I don't want people to know where I'm at, where I've been. Some of those may sneak out, but there's privacy issues. This is a public forum, and I don't know who's watching, and I don't know what some of the intentions might be for anybody who I'm giving too much information to. So I'm being intentionally vague. Bear with me. So one of those I knew was coming in this state, and 2 had 2 or 3 potential options to go. So when I had them delivered, I had them delivered at 2 separate times. So one first, because for sure that one was going, and then that one was filled and that one was taken away, and then I had the 2 come together, and those were filled and those were taken away. So they were all separate. I made it very clear that I wanted those to be kept separate initially, because I didn't know for certain, again, where those 2 were going, and I didn't want to have them need to go to 2 separate places and have a situation where the one that was supposed to go here wasn't the one that came here. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want these to get confused somehow because I wasn't paying enough attention or they weren't paying enough attention, and have the one that needed to be here end up somewhere else. So I made it very clear, keep them separate. I want my billing separate. I want them stored separate. I don't want there to be any confusion. So initially, again, in June, mid-June, when I thought I was going to be able to get all 3 sent to me, and I thought it was only going to be, $1,700, so $1,000 less than my most recent estimate. So that's great. I needed to get all 3 of those together so they could all 3 be sent to me at the same time. I called the 800 number. They needed to call the local place. That person wasn't there. Call back later. I called back 3 separate times to make sure they were all together. I was assured on the 3rd time that yes, they were all together in the same location and ready to be sent out together. Great. 3 weeks later, when I now have all of those funds gathered up and I'm ready to commit, the price has gone up. Okay, that sucks, but I can make that work. That's great. We're going to have them shipped. They're going to come. I got a call while I was at work to let me know that they weren't all 3 together. They had never all 3 been together, and I was now going to have to pay 2 separate shipping fees to get them. And now, not only was it not $1,700, it was not the new estimate that was another $800. And the one I needed, absolutely had to have by X date, was the one they weren't going to be able to send me. So why did I need to have one specific one by a certain date? I have a member of my household who needed to have surgery and was going to be out of commission for X amount of weeks. We've been sleeping for 9 months on air mattresses. It's all we have here, air mattresses. I could not have somebody coming home from surgery and sleeping on an air mattress. I needed that stuff here, and that wasn't going to be able to be here. I got that call while I was at work. And luckily, I was able to go in the office behind a locked door. When I tell you I was distraught, I was quite frankly ugly crying, and it was not pretty. And thankfully I was in private and I was on hold, so nobody had to hear me being that upset. Ultimately, what they were able to do is send the one that needed to be here and one of the 2 that did not need to be here. I don't understand why, if they could get it there to send it initially, they couldn't get all 3 of them there, but that's neither here nor there. I did end up getting 2 boxes sent 2 days before surgery and 1 box sent about a week after surgery. So that is where we've been at and what's been going on and why I've been absent for a while. There has been lead up to surgery. There has been all of these movers unloading and unloading. And right now, my house looks like a hoarder situation. Now, obviously, the person who had surgery, I have to keep everything out of the way of where that person might be moving. So I have 2 rooms that there's paths to move through and 2 rooms where everything looks pretty much normal and there's nothing in the way. So let's get into this breakdown of what this was and what I had to go through that is part of my Debts and Desires video. So this is my U-Haul expense total. So for shipping, I had the 2 boxes, ended up costing me $1,838 to get those 2 sent. And then that one that came later was $1,261. Oh, you know, the one thing I forgot to mention was initially I had a guarantee date for the 2. That was going to be 2 days before surgery. And a guarantee date for the 3rd one that was going to be about a week after surgery. 2 days before this last one was supposed to ship, I got a text message saying that it hadn't shipped. Essentially, my box was lost. And it spent about 6 days of not knowing where it was at and having 0 communication with anybody from the U-Haul place. They sent me a text to tell me that this is who you're going to be communicating with. I'm the only person who can handle your situation. 5 minutes before close on a Friday. And then obviously I can't call Saturday or Sunday. So I go and I try and call on Monday. First of all, they're in a different state, so the times didn't line up. I finally get through and call that number only to get a message that says, we don't take calls. You can only communicate with us via text or email, which I found to be incredibly unprofessional. Up to this point, I could call and be on hold for 20 minutes and actually talk to somebody when things were going smoothly and when they were getting my money. But at a situation where they lost my box or they didn't have it shipped, where they screwed up, all of a sudden there's no way to communicate, not a happy girl. So anyway, this last box I had to pay $1,261 for. So do you remember when I was stressing out about $2,667 for shipping? Ultimately, I had to pay $3,099 to get that shipped here. Unbelievable. And that was the shipping to get it from one side of the country to the other side of the country. Then once it got to their main delivery or their main spot in this state, it had to be delivered from that place to my house at a delivery fee. So we have shipping fees and delivery fees, 2 separate things, not included. That was $105.93 each time. So again, the 2 boxes came on one day, on one truck, one delivery route, $105.93. That last box all by itself, same $105.93 for the same delivery, for $211.86. Then I had to pay movers to unload it because there's a steep flight of stairs. I'm old and we have somebody in surgery. We can't do that. So the first time I called the movers, I initially thought, again, I was going to have all 3 boxes. I was going to need 3 movers for probably about 2.5 hours. So they have a 2-hour minimum. They got 2 boxes. I only got 2, and they got it done in about 1 hour and 15 minutes. But I had to pay the 2-hour minimum for 3 movers. That was $300. The second time I needed to get the movers, I knew I only had 1 box. I told them I was going to need 2 movers because there's no way one person could do that furniture all by itself. If that was the case, I could have done it. So 2 movers, again, a 2-hour minimum. They did give me a repeat customer discount, $220. So for movers, I had to pay $520. Now, had I had all 3 boxes at that first time, absolutely 3 movers would have gotten it done in about 2.5 hours. This first time, they got it done in about 1 hour and 15 minutes. And this second time, they got it done in about 45 minutes. So they absolutely would have been able to get that done in the time frame I said. But I had to pay more. I had to pay more for shipping. I had to pay more for delivery. And I had to pay more for the movers. So all said and told, this $3,099, this $211, this $520. I had to spend $3,860.86 to get my stuff sent to me. I don't know if you can tell in the tone of my voice how frustrating that was for me. So how did I get all of this money when I'm barely getting by paycheck to paycheck? I did end up having $1,624 in taxes that I was able to save and use for this. I did have to borrow $1,000. When they told me they had to separate this, part of why I was crying is because now I did not have the funds. I had saved my taxes, I had saved the money out of my budget, and the quote was now $995 more than the most recent quote. And they're telling me it's because I purposely separated. It's my fault that they can't get those together at the same time. So I had to borrow $1,000 from a family member, and at some point I will have to pay that back. And then I had $1,236 that came out of my own budget to pay for that. So that's where that was. While all this was going on, you may remember from some of my previous videos that I referenced that there was a car repair and that there was the surgery prepayment. That was causing money to have to leave my account early in the month and come back to my account at the end of the month. So I just wanted to let you know what was going on with those as well. For this car, I had to remove $1,170 from my account in end of July or end of June, beginning of July, which did come back to me mid-July to end July. And then surgery, there was $955 that needed to go to surgery, and that needed to be paid by a certain date or the surgery wouldn't happen. Again, that money came out and came back in. So while I'm fighting to get this money, I'm also losing this money, knowing it's going to come back in. So this is all, this $2,125 has come back to me at this point, because I would not have been able to make it without it. But this was all going on that last 2 weeks of June and the first 2 to 3 weeks of July, first 3 weeks of July. This has been very difficult. This has been very challenging, and there was definitely a time here where I very much wanted to throw my hands up and say, I can't do it. Forget it. I can't do it. It was very discouraging. And this is the situation that comes up for me over and over and over again. Maybe I don't have this U-Haul expense, but anytime I create a budget in the past, I start out really strong. I also start out really unrealistically. And then I get to that point about 6 or 8 weeks in where I'm hitting a brick wall. And it's very frustrating and discouraging, and I just throw my hands up and go, I quit. And I so desperately wanted to just say, I can't get these U-Haul boxes now. And honestly, the only thing that kept me fighting and scrambling and ultimately having to borrow money was I'm never, ever, ever going to have the money myself if I have to continue paying the storage fees I'm paying. So that's what I wanted to talk about here, is how much these cost me to store each month. So in September of 2022, I had the one box delivered. That cost me $225.74. And then on the 16th of every month after that, I paid $97.99 for that one box until I could get it, which had me paying $1,205.64 is what I had paid up to July 16th in that one storage box. So yeah, it's only $100 a month, but that's added up quite a lot. Now those two I had set separately came at the 28th of the month. I had to pay the $324.14 for that delivery fee for those two, and then $195.98 until May, and then for whatever reason in June, one of those boxes cost me $1 more. So that cost me $2,088.96 just to have those delivered and be paying those monthly fees. So this was 190, 195, 97 or something, or two. Anyway, it was $300. Not quite $300 to have these just sit in storage. Month after month after month after month, just sit in storage. So then I had to pay the shipping, again, the $12.61, and this one I had to pay in 2 separate payments to get that. So now here we are, and then my delivery fees, and then the movers. So ultimately, for the one I paid $2,792.57, and for the two I paid $4,332.89 over the course of, what is that, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 months. Really? 11 months? 10 months? That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I can't pay any of those other bills that I have on my debts and desires if I don't. I need that $300 a month. So ultimately, that's what pushed me, instead of saying I can't, I give up, I'll try again later. That's what pushed me to ultimately say I need help. They've increased that cost to the point where I can't do it on my own, and borrowed that money. So let's see, what did I spend in total? This total and this total, $7,125.46 is the amount of money I paid to have my stuff not come with me initially. Now, if I didn't have, no matter how I do this, whenever I move, I'm going to need to have movers. I'm too old to do it myself. Some of this furniture is too expensive. So this $330, let's say I load a U-Haul up, I pay the movers to unload it for me. It would definitely be 3 movers. It would definitely be 2 to 2.5 hours. So that's $330. That's no matter how I do it. Rent my own U-Haul, buy a truck, do these boxes, whatever. So then it's $6,795.46 that I spent just to have this loaded and stored and shipped. I show you this because I needed to see this, because one of my desires is to go buy an old U-Haul box truck so that I have that for myself, so that I prevent this from ever happening. And that's an expensive investment, but it's about equal to what I just did to not own it myself. So that's a very long-winded explanation of this very one specific part of my debts and desires. So now that I spent far too long breaking that down, I do want to go into my June debt overview and take a look at what that's looking like for us. So I go over my debts, I go over my desires, and I go over what my current credit rating is. So I have a bill for Banner Health for $50. I have an old rent for $709. I have some toll roads that I've discussed before for $198.95. I have this medical bill for $41.66. This is actually a collections. I have a student loan for $4,500, and I have another student loan for $2,481 for a total of $7,980.51. I'm going to flip back really quick here to June, and we're going to take a look. I lost my U-Haul boxes, which I just spent far too long discussing, and I lost my credit card payment. What happened to this one? Well, I made payment arrangements, and I began paying this in July, and once I've got this on a payment plan, it stops being part of my desire. For myself, it stops being one of my debts. I am paying this. It is still a debt, but it's not sitting in my monthly carryover because now it's being taken care of. So I lost that. So then the rest of this is all the same things I just said. So I went from having $11,900 in debt to having $7,900 in debt. So I lost these first two at over $3,000. And as you just saw, I spent more than that. So I just wanted to point that out, what those differences are from one month to the next. Thankfully, this month I did not add anything to that. If you recall, when I went from in June, 2 new things got added. I had things show up that I wasn't aware of in May. So now let's go over my desires. Those haven't changed. For those of you who watch those other videos, these are going to look the the same to you. I want a Sweet 16 handy quilter. This is a sit-down sewing machine that would help me quilt some quilts. It's a very niche thing, so those of you who aren't familiar with it, with what that is, just know that that is a fairly expensive piece of equipment that I've wanted to have for at least 7 years, potentially longer. I don't see this going away anytime soon. There are other machines, long arm machines, that are stand-up machines that are more than some people pay for cars and houses. I definitely don't want that, but this is pretty significant purchase. Again, I just said I want to purchase my own U-Haul. U-Haul has a program where they sell their old machines that are out of their fleet. I think it's a mileage thing. U-Haul services their trucks fairly well. It's the cheapest way for me to buy and own my own box truck. I move a lot. That's not something that's ever going to change. I have wished many times that I could be a little bit more stable in the course of my adult life. Actually, more so in my young adult life. But I have just accepted the fact that I'm a bit of a nomad. I'm not happy sitting still in one area. I really like to travel. This is a fantastic country with a lot of opportunities, and I want to see those. So I want to be able to move on my own terms and not be at the mercy of some outside company. Also, I'm wanting to start my own business, and some of that is going to involve some fairs and festivals and needing to deliver, to go to places and pick up things, and I just find that that will be beneficial in that aspect. Additionally, part of my being a nomad, I'd like to live in an RV type situation, and I could modify a U-Haul box truck as a place to live for travel positions. So for all of those reasons, whether you agree with them or not, that's why that's on my list. I want a steam juicer, which is a canning thing that would help with mostly with some jellies, some of the fruits and things that are harder to produce. You make a juice concentrate with this. I'd like to make some seedless blackberry jam, which this would help with. It's again a novelty niche thing that is on the list. I want a green bean Frencher. It's only 20 bucks. Someday I may get that, but again, it's a novelty thing, not high priority. It's on my someday list. I want my hair cut and colored. I haven't had my hair cut and colored. Well, I haven't had my hair cut in probably 1.5 years at this point, and I haven't had it colored in probably about 3 years. It's time, and I really want that. I need to get some pants, and I want a 3-way mirror. I have reached a critical point with my pants. All of my pants now have holes where the thighs rub, and I have to get them. So this is going to have to be addressed, honestly, within the next couple of weeks. So I have $12,010 in my list of desires, things I'd like to have. You know, pants are always going to kind of come on and come off. I have a very hard time justifying buying myself clothing, and I don't like to shop. So that's why that's on there. Then we're going to go over my credit score. When I went back and started this journey, I went and checked my initial credit score. My credit score went all the way back at that time to April of 2020, and I think it was a 2-year timeline that they had. So I've hung on to that initial. So at that time, my credit was 582, which is actually just barely, but in the fair category. And here credit ranges go from poor, fair, good, very good, and excellent. I have never ever been very good or excellent. At my lowest point, my credit was in September of 2022 was 490, which is very, very poor credit. At my highest point, which was June of 2021, I was at 695. So I had finally made it into the good category and was sitting there for a little while, and that felt lovely. And then I had a situation where life happened and things dropped. I am currently at 555, which is 4 points higher than I was in June. I'm still very much within the poor range, and that is why I feel comfortable going over something as personal as my personal credit score. There will come a time when my credit is high enough that I don't want to start sharing it. Again, there's some privacy issues that come with with all of that, and I don't want to, but right now my credit is so poor, nobody's going to want to try and be me. Nobody's going to, there's no, anyway, that's where I'm at. Slowly moving forward. For those of you who've been here a while, you know I have a craft I work on in the background. In the month of July, it was a stocking I've been working on. I'm going to show you where I'm at with that. I did get pretty far, but I'm not done. And this will continue to be in the background until I go through all of my July videos, even though at the moment I'm filming it, we are actually at the beginning of August. But when I'm done with my July videos, I will be done with this July project for continuity in the background of my videos. When you come back 6 months from now, if I get somebody new who wants to go back and scroll through, I want the continuity. I need it for myself visually and for you guys. I'm trying to rush